All right, welcome everyone. My name is Tony Mizuko. I am the Vice President of the New England chapter of the American Society for Public Administration. Thank you for joining us for our career panel today. I'm just going to go over a couple of housekeeping items, then I'm going to turn it over to our fantastic moderator and panel for the rest of the day or for the rest of the event. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We're going to take all the questions in the chat. We'll get the panelists and others to work on answers, and we'll get that out to everyone who has emailed them. If you're registered and here today, the chapter is also going to be offering resume and interview assistance for folks who attended or folks who registered. We'll send an email out about that shortly. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Leon Gauman, the town manager in Weston, and he's going to take us through our panel. Leon, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you, Tony. And I want to thank all the people who are joining this session here today. Especially, I would like to thank the moderators. My name is Leon Gomand. I want to thank the panelists, I should say. My name is Leon Gomand. I'm currently the town manager in the town of Weston, Massachusetts. I've been here for about 8 years now, and I've worked in municipal government for almost 25 years and state government for about 10 years prior, working in the House of Representatives in Massachusetts. And with me, I have a fantastic group of panelists who are here to put out their knowledge and experience for the entire world to hear. And I'm going to start with Scott. Scott from South Portland, Maine. Scott, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what your role is, how you got into your position, and what are some of the things that you might be looking for in seeing someone succeeding in this in this whole region of New England?
Well, thanks, Leon, and greetings, everybody. Happy to be here. As Leon mentioned, I'm the city manager in South Portland, Maine. I've been there for a little over 8 years. I have about 20 years of municipal government experience, worked in another community in Maine as city manager, and then first job out of graduate school was actually in Framingham, Mass, working for the town manager back when it was a town. So that's how old I am. And Prior to that, I had also worked in a smaller community in Maine. So I've been in four local governments in my career, each of different sizes. And how I got into the field, I studied undergrad public administration, and so I knew that's something that I wanted to do. And so my first job in Maine was pretty much after college was being a selectman's assistant for a smaller community, and kind of looking for, depending on the community, depending on the needs. We've hired interns into positions. They've started out as an intern. We brought them on, as full-time employees. We have people that have been fresh out of college, either undergraduate or graduate school. Sometimes you are looking for more experience, so you're looking for someone that has that municipal background, but it really kind of all depends on what the position and the needs are of the community at the time.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Nice intro. Lisa Adams, the director of the Investigation Center of Expertise with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Lisa, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this role and what you're looking for when you're looking to bring somebody on.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And good morning or afternoon, everyone. I started in state government, actually. I had an internship my third year of law school, and that was with the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination. I knew that I wanted to do something in that area. That was my area of interest from college even. And so from that internship, I then was applying for state positions and ended up being hired at the Human Resources Division where I work now. So this is going back quite a while, decades ago. That was my first job as labor counsel. I then left and did a few more things in between, including a state contracted position for about 10 years, again with the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, and landed back at the agency I started at, the Human Resources Division. So I've come full circle with respect to state government. I think with respect to, looking for something to say about succeeding in this region, or even just in hiring in state government or local government, I'm always looking for someone that has a good understanding of government. So that would be my my advice is make sure you understand how government works and have a good understanding of how local government works if you're applying to local government or state government and all the secretariats and the agencies and how they intersect the executive branch and the legislative and judicial. And it seems elementary, but that is one main thing I look for in my hiring.
Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Ann Brega, Director of Human Resources for the town of Brookline. Happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got in, and what do you see from people trying to succeed in this region?
So I'm a third generation public servant. And so, it's not just drinking from the fire hose, but it is, genetic, I guess. Grandfather is a firefighter. My mom was a library director. My sister is a CFO for a school district. And so I knew I wanted to do something to give back. And I think a lot of the motivation for folks coming into public service now is to be able to, the essence of the Athenian oath, which is to leave the city better than you found it, and whatever that means and whatever role you have. So I studied budget and tax. I went to law school, worked for an elected body for almost 20 years at the Boston City Council. So I had 13 bosses. 4 of whom ran against each other every 2 years, and then moved into HR and compliance and talent management, and am now the HR director for the last 6.5 years with the town of Brookline. So 9 months before COVID, I'm the new HR director. What I'm looking for is transferable skills. So, and we're going to talk about that, I think, today, is your path doesn't need to be a straight line. You can veer off to one side or the other to find things that you either like or don't like and move forward. But, the transferable skills are being able to pick up new things and learn, whether it's software or it's procedures or whatever else. And, I agree with Lisa is the understanding of government is helpful. And maybe understanding good government is better than some others, but really looking at transferable skills, whether you are a new career professional, mid, or someone who's a senior leader, that folks will impart knowledge and share. So that's sort of where I'm at.
Great, thank you very much, Ann. John Frederick, a town manager in Joffrey, New Hampshire.
Thank you, Leon, and welcome everybody. As I've been in Jaffrey as a town manager for the last 8.5 years. Previous to that, I managed 3 communities that work together in far northern Maine: Mapleton, Castle Hill, and Chapman. That was a very unique opportunity. And previous to that, I was the first parking manager and then the director of parking and transportation in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. That was my first job in local government. I was in the United States Coast Guard for 20 years, retired, and prior to retiring, I got my master's in public administration and had the opportunity during that master's degree to do an internship with the town administrator in Derry, New Hampshire, which gave me exposure to what this all looked like and firmed up for me the idea that this would be good work. And the thing that I found trying to break in was that everybody wanted me to have experience in municipal government before taking a chance. So, the success was based on my willingness to start at a lower level, take the time to learn local government, and then, apply it in an upper echelon level later on as a town manager in Maine and then back here in New Hampshire. So the willingness to start low, learn, and prove yourself. The other key thing to this work that we all do is this is about people, and you've got to be good with people. And the successful ones are the ones that work very well with their colleagues as well as with the public. So thank you.
Good advice, John. And last but not least, Bernie Lynch, who is the founder and managing principal of Community Paradigm Associates. And with full disclosure, I can say I've worked with Bernie in the past The position I have now was a recruitment that he ran through his firm. So I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my good friend Bernie. So Bernie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks, Leon. And I guess I'm the senior person here. I have about 45 years experience in local government. I have my master's degree from UMass Amherst and chose to initially to go into state government. I spent about a year working for Mass Housing before I determined that my future really lay more with local government and what was happening out there. So I did that for about 30 some odd years, working in, I guess, 35, close to 35 years in local government with two primary positions. I was the town manager of Chelmsford, Massachusetts for 20 years, first town manager that Chelmsford had. And then I took a leap and decided I would try to become the city manager of Lowell, Massachusetts, never expecting to actually get the position. They did not have a history of hiring professional managers, more political people. But I happened to get the appointment. I was there for almost 8 years, which makes me the third longest city manager in the city of Lowell's history, going back to 1940. So I always make sure I note that I survived a long time in the city of Lowell. But I did decide back in 2014 to leave the city to branch off and do some other things. I had been teaching for a number of years at UMass Lowell, and then so I was going to continue to do that. I had an opportunity to teach at Suffolk University and their public administration program. And I thought I would continue to venture into helping communities with a variety of public management projects. And so we've done a variety of strategic plans, organizational assessments, and the like. But what really took off was the recruiting. With the baby boomers all leaving the workforce, a number of vacancies opened up. And so for the past 10 years, we've done now 125 town manager positions and about 50 other management type positions in local government, nonprofits, and some quasi-state agencies. So, that's what we've been doing. I work with a number of other retired managers as well as a couple of journalists that we brought on board to help us with our marketing materials and our recruitment materials and our reference work. But we've been quite busy doing all of that. I think the trends, or what I see as being important in, I think everyone has already really hit upon everything. I think you need to have the technical skills. You need to have the ability to, manage a budget, to develop a budget. You need to be able to do the type of analytical work that needs to take place. You have to have all of those technical skills that to manage within municipal setting or any organization. I think the idea of understanding the processes is crucial that Lisa mentioned. You have to understand how government works, whether it be in state government or local government. You have to understand how it all comes together. But to Ann's point and John's, there are skills that come out that you can develop and you can transfer over to the state and local government. You just have to be able to make the case of how those are transferable. One of the trends that we're certainly seeing is, and I sort of go back in my history to the 1980s when people didn't have town managers out there, town administrators to hire from at the local level. So they had to take a leap of faith with a number of us that were going into the work at the time, whether we came out of planning, community development, finance, HR, whatever the case may be, or coming out of the private sector. But as long as you understood municipal government, you understood the processes, then you could transfer all of that over to the jobs that you have. And the last point that John mentioned was people. And I think that's one trend that we're certainly seeing is many of the communities now are really focusing in not just on a manager or a department head that sits in a corner office and just with the eye shade on and just does that type of technical work, but someone that is involved with community engagement, communication, and interacting with people. More important now than I think ever before. So those are the trends I see, and that's sort of the perspective that I have as I sit here today.
Yeah, thank you, Bernie. Thank you for that introduction and heading into the hiring and staffing trends that you are seeing in municipal and state government. Anybody else have any more to add to that? I know that was a mouthful and a half.
I think the challenge is going to be that we're going to have to, as a result of everything going on, we're going to have to make some difficult decisions where we're going to have people exiting, um, in order to be the responsible folks at the local and state level and balance our budget
Right.
and have those conversations, as part of probably the worst part of our jobs aside from discipline. And being able to maximize, we've hired two or three people from the federal, DRIP program, and we had got somebody with 30 years experience between the state and the
Right.
feds, and taking advantage of bringing somebody in who's new, but not new to the work.
Right.
Um, so
Yeah, if I could just play off of that, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit with the idea that communities now have to be a little bit more. I think, and I've been, it's a battle with some communities because they insist that they have to have someone that's done the job already, but pulling people out of public works. And Tony's, I'm still sure is still on here. Tony, I think, is the first manager in Norwood that hasn't been an engineer and hasn't been a public works person. Traditionally, historically, the first city managers, and I'm speaking more from the local government perspective here, but the first city managers were all engineers, and Norwood just kept that going until Tony got hired. But now being out in communities and saying, look at a public works person. That could be they understand the processes, they've gone through, they understand what happens in local government, finance person, HR, whatever pulling the, you know, people that have worked as long as they understand how local government works. Uh, they can move over into these higher level positions.
Great, great. So we talked a little bit about this in some of the preliminary discussions, but what are probably the top two experiences or skills that differentiate a candidate in state and municipal roles here in New England? What would you highlight as like the top two things, each of you? I don't know. Lisa, I'll start with you.
Sure. So I mean, it's been mentioned, but I think it's important to highlight it again. Client-facing experience, or just being a really good people person, and that goes a long way in multiple positions because you're often facing, the public whom we serve. So I would say that, and then also. I think creativity is another one. Often in public service, we have to get the job done with fewer resources, and you'll need to think creatively and find solutions within that space. And also, you'll work with people that have been there for decades too, and having a creative, refreshing viewpoint is really important to perhaps moving the project forward, or taking another viewpoint on something that might make it better. So I'd say client facing experience and creativity for me.
Scott, what do you think?
And those are all good points as well. It goes back somewhat to what is it you're looking for. If it's a manager job, what I've kind of found is sometimes a community when they're hiring for a manager is reacting to the prior manager, and for good or for bad. So, for example, if a community's gone through a financial crisis and had some budget issues, the next person they hire, they're going to want to make sure they have a solid financial background so that doesn't happen again, or vice versa. If the manager was great with budgets and numbers, but not so much of, as Lisa kind of said, a people person or whatever. They're going to want someone who can relate better to employees and has a good relationship with the public. So I guess what I found in my career is even if we've hired someone that for like a department head level position or entry level, even if they haven't necessarily had the skills required of that position, if they are someone that seems energetic and enthusiastic about the work too, it's not just, yeah, I kind of need a job. I'm showing up for a paycheck. I mean, that's pretty low threshold, right? It's they really have an interest in public service, and they can demonstrate that through their application materials and in the interview. Um, you're willing to take a chance on someone like that, even if over someone that might have that type of background. But again, it really all depends on the position that you're applying for. You're not going to hire, a police chief, for example, without having some law enforcement background, or a fire chief without having that background. But depending on the position, there's different skill sets. But really having that, I like to see a passion for public service, even. Yeah, for any position, frankly, it's just you can make up a lot by showing that that's something that you're really committed to, serving the public.
Great. Um, Anybody else want to add anything, or I can move to the next question?
Sure. No, but real quickly on
Sure,
the
John.
thing that we look for here is number one is fit with your colleagues and the ability to work with the public. You can't teach that. And so bringing that to the table is primary for us. The next thing is the figure it out ability. People that can come in with municipal experience, but may not have necessarily worked in a role, have that ability to learn on the fly. And that applies in certain positions. Obviously, you wouldn't want to hire a finance director that had never worked with, accounting before. But generally that's what we look for is those are the two priorities when we conduct the search. And then you get down obviously into experience and certifications following.
Right. Yeah, and I would just echo what John and Scott said about sort of that energy, you know, the belief in the importance of public service. We've interviewed people, we've spoken to people who have made it very clear in their interviews they basically just want to mail it in. And these are very all-consuming positions, and it really requires a passion for what you're doing. And I think that's very important to have that, and the ability or interest in learning. Learning new skills, learning new ideas. That kind of perhaps goes to the creativity that Lisa spoke of. The other thing, and this is sort of moves away from this a little bit, but what differentiates here in Massachusetts, particularly in local government, is understanding Massachusetts local government, New England local government. These are the only section of the state that has sections of the country that still has town meeting
Yeah.
in many communities, the boards of selectmen in many towns. No other, when we interview people from outside of this area, this is, a completely foreign concept to them, and trying to get them to understand that. So, coming from out of New England and understanding those forms of government gives you a leg up, certainly over other people coming from outside of the region.
How about those people looking to transition into state or local government or move up within the region? What do you think are most effective ways to get the foot in the door? What do you, I think, Ann, you mentioned one earlier. What are the best ways that we can get into the profession if you're not currently there?
We have, the co-sponsors of today's event, is a way to participate in those resources and network. It does go back, I think, to reaching out your hand and willing to shake it and talk to folks you don't know, and doing, informational interviews to just understand the difference and be curious. I found that to go a long way with someone who's interested in the public sector and maybe has only done, corporate or whatever else, but they're looking to feed their avocation as opposed to their wallet. Because we definitely don't pay the same, but that drive is really based in curiosity and being able to, whether you get involved in your local community, as a start to sort of learn it as a participant. And then, the informational interviews allow for folks like me to say, oh, that's a transferable skill. We have something that's like that. And if you know how to do, account balancing at the end of the year, the comptroller's office is something that, folks do that. And so it is, the concepts are transferable. You just need to learn the account names and sort of how the math works. So,
Yeah. I think it really depends on where people are in their career trajectory. If they're at the beginning, I think that there are internship opportunities. They may be paid, they may not be paid, but getting your foot in the door that way. I often speak to people who want to get into the to this sector, and they don't really they haven't had an opportunity to land a position just yet. So I urge or land the position that they want because they're missing some element, and I'll urge them, to go become a board member or a committee member in their community that gets them again their foot in the door to understand a little bit more. So if they may be coming out of the land use area and they need to learn finance, well, go sit on the finance committee or go become involved with your own community in terms of their finance work. And take those entry level positions that are out there, or those committee opportunities that maintain your professionalism, but still get you involved in the local government.
Yeah,
I'll
Lisa, you
tap on it
mentioned
too.
internships before. You and I both started, I think, in our professional lives, starting as an intern. If it wasn't for my internship initially with the House of Representatives, it landed me, the ability to work within the legislature for 10 years. You've
Yeah,
had a similar experience.
I have, and I'm glad you mentioned that because we actually have hired interns for full-time positions, and some of our interns have gone out and gotten full-time positions with other agencies. So that's been kind of a win-win. I love having interns. I think it's a great way to learn about government, and for us, it's a great help. And they also infuse a lot of good energy into the unit. So fellowships as well, that's another thing to look for. I'm sure that some have gone away, but I think that others are still out there. I would look at internships and fellowships, even post grad. Absolutely.
Great. I want to take just a second to, as a break, there's been a lot of new people that have come in recently. I would like to just remind people, if you have any questions, you can put them into the chat function at the bottom of your screen. I also want to thank the partners who help promote this event, the Mass Municipal Association, the New Hampshire Municipal Association, the Maine Municipal Association, and the New Hampshire, and I'm sorry, and and the Rhode Island League of Cities. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. All right. One of the things about this type of work is networking. Networking in local government certainly can be opaque. What are three specific ways you might recommend for someone to build relevant connections, especially where they may not already have like a public sector network in, say, Massachusetts or Rhode Island or New Hampshire? Any thoughts about building your local network?
I'll jump in, Leon.
Sure, Scott.
Couple of the suggestions that I would have, there's different ways to do it. So, for example, right now, there's been a person that's working overseas due to some cuts in the federal government, has been looking to get back to Maine, doesn't have any municipal experience, has the federal experience. He's been calling managers of a variety of different communities, just talking to them, letting him know, his interest, what his skill set is, sharing his resume, asking, hey, what about this community? What do you think about me applying for that? Do you have any inside information? He's just done a really good job, kind of, calling different managers, and they're giving him feedback too, saying, yeah, I think this community may not be a good fit because you don't have, background in managing people or whatever, even though you have background in managing budgets. So you may need to, beef up those skills or whatever. And so that's one way. The other way is there's professional organizations usually in each state. So, the Maine Town and City Management Association where I am, there's a student membership that's a discounted rate, or there's a associate member if you're not a manager, but maybe you're a department head or an affiliate member level, all of those things. And then once you're in that group, you have access to certain resources, including discounts on attending. We hold a few conferences each year, or where there's educational sessions, keynote speakers, social events, opportunities just to network with people, and so things like that. And I know Maine and Massachusetts both have the MMA for where that holds conferences. So joining those organizations, I think, are helpful. Talking to colleagues, talking to people in the profession, I found those as ways to be successful. And of course, people have mentioned internships. I'm trying to think interns that I've hosted. I can't think of one that if they've wanted to stay in municipal government hasn't either been hired right away or isn't working in municipal government right now. So those are really, I've seen good results from those as well.
Yeah.
Think it goes back to my beginning statement around transferable skills. And also just as Scott said, being able to attend those informational sessions. Zoom is helpful, I think, because you can find a lot that are online that are free, like this one. And you've got names, and then you can go from there. The other part of it is, I think, one of the newest generation coming into the workforce, the post-COVID generation, where a lot of their interactions have been, through technology, whether it's text or it's Zoom, getting them used to in-person, face-to-face conversations. And that is something that, working, I think, with the colleges and universities to say, listen, let's do a face-to-face event so that, we can work on those skills of how to put out your hand and be able to, say, walk into a room where you don't know anyone and be able to be in that room and know, okay, this is my pitch, right? This is my value statement. This is my pitch. And just be curious. And that has it's more of a challenge being a parent of a teenager. I can see that because he's like, well, can't I just, email them or chat them or whatever else? And no, pick up the phone. No. But I think, being able to help them with that kind of conversation and interpersonal skills. We talked about technical, we talked about content and interpersonal, whether you define it as soft or communication or whatever else. Those are the three legs of the stool. As somebody's coming in, and just being able to be out there. And I've brought people with me that weren't in the sector, and they're now members and working and doing other things in different places. And it's just someone who knows someone and having that conversation.
Yeah, one of my colleagues in Maine told me he's always flattered when somebody comes to him for help and advice. And quite frankly, I think we all are. If you're, if I get called, somebody's asking my advice, I feel pretty flattered. And don't be afraid to reach out. Uh, when I first tried to break into this business, I called almost every city and town manager in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Maine, just introducing myself and seeing if they knew of any opportunities available and if they had any advice to give. And that really helped open things up. But you're broadening your network when you do that. Those are the soft skills that you're exposing, to people that don't know you. And then that ends up coming around because everybody in New Hampshire talks to one another. Everyone in Maine talks to one another. I'm sure Mass is the same way. And if you're talking to somebody you're impressed with, I'm not afraid to send a message out to my colleagues saying, "Hey, this individual needs a leg up and would be really good. I can't help them now, but maybe one of you can."
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, John. That's very helpful. All of us on this call, we have one thing in common for sure, and that is we certainly have seen a lot of resumes for positions in our careers. From your practical experience, when you see a resume, a cover letter, or an application for a role like these, what is one of the biggest red flags you see? And conversely, what is some of the things that you go, oh wow, this person really nailed it? A real good answer. Anyone?
I can talk about that.
Sure, Lisa.
I review a lot of resumes, and the one red flag for me on a resume or a cover letter is sloppiness. If it's not well written in the proper format, I'm a little bit of a traditionalist around this, but to me, it signals that perhaps the work that I'm going to receive from that employee is not going to be neat and organized, and so forth. So, schools have great career centers. They will look over your resumes. They will give you advice. Cover letters are equally important. Um, and I would just encourage you to have someone read over your resume, read over your cover letter for, spell check, typos, making sure that there's just relevant information on there. It's super, super important to have a professional looking resume and cover letter. And unfortunately, you do need to tailor your cover letters to that specific position. Make sure that, there aren't errant words in there from a past job that you've applied to. So just attention to detail like that.
I agree, Lisa, has, particularly for entry level positions. If people who are applying for with long experience, they get a pass, somewhat of a pass sometimes because they've got a body of work that you can say, okay, they can't spell, they can't write, but we know what they've done somewhere. But for people, just particularly people just breaking in, it has to be professional looking. It has to be succinct, that you can look at it, see what you need to see, that it's tailored to the position that you have. I always tell people, I remember when I had to go looking for a job, 45 years ago, we didn't have word processors. And so we had to kind of cheat a little bit with the making the same cover letter over and over and over again, just running it through a copy machine. Now it's, with technology, you can just really focus in on what that is and the position you're looking for and make your case relevant to the position that you're looking for. So
I think for me, the biggest red flag is when I get a cover letter that says, I'm applying for blank and blank position in your company.
Yeah.
I'm not a company. I'm a
Yeah.
town, and what I want to see in the cover letter is, what can you do for me as the employer with your skills? What are you bringing to the table? And what are you looking for? Because I think the goal-oriented conversation is helpful if you're looking for retention. And obviously, newer professionals have a different we have a different look on that as far as just being able to, bring them into the fold, and are there promotional opportunities. Our career ladders in municipal government are kind of wonky. Somebody wants my job, they got to take me out, and
Yeah.
there aren't like 12 other ones. But really being able to say, this person put time into it. We all have to deal with the AI of it all now. And so there's that too, is those kind of things. But I want to be able to see from someone, in talking about one of the earlier questions, if someone's never done public sector work, but you can see their avocation, which is what I call public sector work because it is a passion.
right.
In the other things that they do, they're a big sister or a big brother, or they're on a local board or the PTO, or whatever it is that they've demonstrated some involvement. It may not be who signs their paycheck, but it can be the other things that they do as a full human coming in the door.
And I'll piggyback on what you just said because it directly relates. I was recently hiring a position for the town of Weston, and the cover letter came across. I'm so excited to be applying for a position for the town of Wellesley. Clearly, they were looking for the same position previously and forgot to change the cover letter, or maybe they confused the two towns. It could be easy enough to do, but nothing is a bigger red flag to me if they can't even identify the town that they're applying for the position for.
Right.
Given budgets and hiring cycles in state municipal government can be quite different than the private and nonprofit, what should job seekers know about timing or application strategy or persistence in trying to fill one of these roles in the region?
I'm asked this on a regular basis of whether there's a particular time that these positions open up. There's no, in the school, in the education world, typically these positions open up, at the end of the school year. in municipal government, they open up when they open up. So I have not seen a particular time of year that's, more active than another. Even the holidays are active, it seems. But I think the important thing is, and I had an opportunity to speak at the Managers Association, Mass Managers Association, just a couple weeks ago on this issue of breaking into the profession and persistence. You just have to keep on going and keep on trying and applying for these positions and not shooting too high. And it's just hitting that sweet spot of not shooting too high and not shooting too low for these. Although I don't know if you're breaking in, sometimes you have to start at a real entry level position. I hired, when I was city manager, I hired uh, a gentleman who had never worked in the public sector, had come out of done some education and work at a private school and done some he was more of a business type of person, and but he was new to the region. We took a chance on him. We were impressed by his passion and by his knowledge of certain systems. We put him in a very low level position, pretty much the lowest level position we had in city government, perhaps. And he's now a deputy manager for finance in a very he's been in there in a couple of different communities now, and has worked his way up through a variety of positions. But he wanted to get in, he took it, and he made the case and made himself a very valued employee of every organization he's been in. So you have to be persistent, and you have to be able to take the sort of see the big picture of where you want to get to.
I do see
John,
some students, just a quick comment. I do see some students coming out of school expecting to, go into a high level position at the top step and, having the conversation around it. I understand student debt and those kind of things, but, having to explain to folks newer in the profession that we can't bring you in at the top step because here are the minimum qualifications. Maybe you may or may not meet that as far as experience or whatever. But it also gives you an opportunity to grow your income because once the steps are done, if you have 8 steps in the 9th year or the 9th step, you're just getting the cost of living adjustment and you're not getting the step and the cost of living. And that's a hard thing for folks to understand because they're like, well, I'm out. I should be paying the highest amount. And I have department heads who want to, get somebody and say, I want to pay the top stuff. And I'm like, no. I'm like, they meet min qual, which means they're eligible for the position. You got steps 1 and 2, maybe. And then you go from there. And yeah, I'm not a popular person when I go to that.
well, the HR person is not usually the most popular person in the room. No. John, we're getting close to the end here. I wanted to ask you, what is one piece of advice you wish that you received before you first sought a job in state or municipal government?
That's a good question. Yeah, the thing, Bernie hit on it. I heard no an awful lot. So, I retired from the Coast Guard. I was 37 years old, and I was starting over, and I retired in June. I didn't get hired until October. So, and I heard no a lot, and picking myself up by the bootstraps, as somebody who had a long career, and starting over was a tough thing. And the thing that I wish I had been told going into it is that be prepared to hear no a lot. And all you need to do is hear yes once, and you're good to go. But it's that amount of time. Don't get frustrated. Keep going, and you'll get that yes eventually. And I had to learn that one on my own. There wasn't somebody there that was telling me. But hey Scott, do you have that 10 things I wish I knew that we used to circulate in Maine? If you have that handy, send that to Tony because we had this top 10 list that we had in Maine of things that we wish we knew before we started. And
yeah, that's
a very helpful guideline.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I figured out along the way, and I wish I knew, was that I had my master's degree, good grades. I'm in Connecticut. The economy was worse when I got out of my master's than it was before. And I figured, well, the economy's bad. I'll just stay in school. A lot of people do that. And I worked two jobs for a year and a half before I ended up here in Boston. And I worked substitute teaching in the mornings and did McDonald's on Route 95 and the various places that the company owned um, for over a year. I was a very highly educated toilet cleaner. Um, and for a long time I had McDonald's on my resume and people will ask why, and I'll be like, well, I learned skills there. I learned procedure, how to follow the rules, take direction, those kind of things, and the flexibility because as Lisa talked about earlier, your customers are either, or your clients are either inside clients or outside clients. And we all have clients, regardless of what department we're in. And that taught me customer service and to deal with, the cray-cray that might come in the door or whatever else. And I wish I had known that an education isn't an automatic yes to the point earlier is that yeah, I figured I had a master's degree. It was in a good field. It shouldn't be a problem. And
Yeah.
it was. And that's a hard lesson to know that education alone isn't gonna give you a yes.
Right.
I want to jump to some panelist questions from the audience, but before I do that, do any of the panelists have any last minute closing or some wisdom that they would like to share before we start asking some questions? Lisa, maybe?
I actually had something I wanted to mention was, we didn't talk about online networking, and I think that's important too. LinkedIn, we at the Commonwealth, we post a lot on LinkedIn. And so I would encourage people to follow the Commonwealth, follow the executive office for your MPA specialty on LinkedIn. And the Executive Office of Labor and Development also has really good things they put out. So that would be a good follow as well. But I think that's an important piece of networking is obviously online now.
Right.
Scott, anything from you maybe?
Well, almost to go back to the prior question a little bit that I wanted to share. John mentioned the 10 things you wish you knew. I think one thing that stuck with me was um, you're not hired to have all the answers. If you're going into the manager job, you just have to be smart enough to know where to go to find them. Like you're not supposed to be some, omnipotent being that can solve every issue. You just have to kind of be almost like a conductor or a coach and just be able to kind of direct the person in charge of that or find the answer. But another thing, just to kind of touch on a common theme, also related to the last question. When I graduated, I got my master's at Syracuse, my MPA, and there was a lot of focus on economics, on statistics, on quantitative analysis, budgeting, which reading financial statements, all very important, good hard skills. But the soft skills are so important. Being able to deal with your as a manager, being able to deal with your city council, especially if there's difficult counselors, being able to deal with residents, being able to do community engagement and get kind of authentic feedback that really helps to shape decisions, not just oh, we did public feedback and we're going to do what we were always planning to do anyway. So you just have to be able, it's been talked about, but I guess I'm stressing it more, just having opportunities that you can take to network, just to interact, employee relations, all of these things are very important, in many cases, as much as, or more so than the hard skills. So, I don't know. I don't have any great advice on how to do that, but that is something that is important.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to have some thick skin and not take things personally either.
Yeah,
Good
exactly.
point.
If
Yeah.
if I could just throw one more thing in, and it kind of what Scott just said kind of made me think about this a little bit. We talked a little bit earlier about passion. And passion on the job is crucial. The fact that you're not just going to mail it in, that you're going to really be committed to what you're doing. But passion also, to me, means you're curious and you're creative and you're seeing the the profession of public administration in your everyday life, and you're constantly looking around you and seeing it that you could then bring to the table as an employee. So, you're understanding leadership from watching Ted Lasso, and those lessons that you could bring into the workplace from that. You're seeing it as you see, you go down the street and you see something taking place on a roadway, or and you say, oh, that's an idea I can bring to this position that I have or I'm interested in. I, I really admire people that have that level of curiosity and interest in what they do, and that passion for what they do.
Tony, we have any good questions in the chat that we would like to get answered?
Yes, I've been trying to furiously answer them. This one actually comes from Arun, who's a professor at Suffolk. And really for the panel, the first question, what's the most effective way that colleges and universities offering MPA and MPP programs can prepare their students for careers in local government? And then the second part of that is, what gaps do you see between academic training and the real world skills needed by municipal employers? So who wants to take that one?
I'll just jump
mean-
on, and I've kind of talked about it earlier. I get as an alumnus of the MPA program, I get a lot of surveys. Hey, how was your undergraduate experience? How has it translated into your work life? Were there things that it prepared you for and it didn't? And I said the same thing. You all did a great job focusing on the harder skills, but have more things on community engagement and dealing with difficult people, de-escalation skills for difficult situations. If there's any way to incorporate those into programs to help prepare students, offering more internship opportunities. I co-teach a graduate class at USM, Southern Maine, and the school provides funding for, like 8 internships that are paid. And so we can send those students out into communities. It's not really much cost to the community other than they have to send that student to a conference in the summer. And so those are really good ways as well to prepare students, or at least get them some of that real world experience in addition to the classroom learning.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I would, we talked a little bit about here in networking, and at Suffolk, I do know that because I actually taught a course in this, the undergraduate School of Business has a course, a quarter course that they do every year, and I'm not saying they should necessarily do this in the graduate program, but something sort of tied to the same concept of career development. And I spent quite a bit of time when I was working in that quarter class that did for that one time doing there. Spent a lot of time just talking about how to network, the importance of networking. And I just think that the graduate schools should do that. My own graduate program at UMass Amherst way back when actually was a 2-year program, a year in Amherst and a year out in the field. And I think they've moved away from that now. But it really was a great, take the theory coming out of Amherst, the great thoughts and all of that, go spend a year in the field, then come back and put it together. The reality and the theory, and where do they meet and how does it work? I think programs. If I were designing a graduate program, I would do something exactly like that to sort of give that real world experience.
And I'll
when I
follow
was
up follow up with Bernie. Is when I did teach at a few of the colleges and universities in the Boston area, and the way I approached it was you did the textbook reading on your own, and then in class we're like, okay, we're talking about a water and sewer treatment plant. Let's talk about the issues around that and role play, so that the adult learning cycle as you get particularly into grad school is, okay, how do you have that conversation with the most obnoxious city, town, manager that you have, and learning to take that breath before you start. It's not personal, like all of those things, and being able to practice it. And I will say that I hear from my former students quite a bit when they come across a situation that we've role played in class, and they call me up and they're like, OMG, like this really happened. And, at the moment when they're students, they're like, oh, I have to act and do whatever else. But it was a way for them to remember in a visceral way when they actually approached it. And I think, to Scott's point around the hard, scientific based math, those kind of things, those in my own MPA program at UConn, they moved more towards the analytical. And I've seen other colleges and universities take human resources or management out of the curriculum because
Mm.
of accreditation and timing and whatever else. Like, if you don't teach the human part, and I think about this with our line supervisors, we promote somebody who's really good at digging a hole in the street to be the supervisor of people digging a hole in the street. But we don't give them the skills to deal with the obnoxious employee who's always 10 minutes late, yada, yada. And those are the kind of things that, whether it's a practicum or it's part of a capstone where you're sort of doing the reality part, is being able to do that so that the newer graduates have some at least experience in a hypothetical way of what these things can look like.
Thank you, Ann. That was great. Tony, anybody? Another?
Well, I'll add one thing to that, and I think we've covered most of the questions. Just on
Oh,
that
good.
networking piece, because somebody had asked a question about, gee, it sounds like the panel has a lot of stereotypes with younger people not shaking hands and not wanting to be in person. Remember that when you're going for that interview, that's our first impression of you. So if you're not able to do it with me, it's not so much that I need you to shake my hand firmly and look me in the eye. That's how you're going to interact with every resident in the community. And the networking piece isn't just about getting the job. It helps you get to know people, you learn more, but you're networking in the job too, not just for the purpose of your job, but with the community. So I need to know that I'm sending an employee out to meet with a resident group, to attend a public meeting, to attend a community event. And I need to know what sort of employee I'm putting out there to meet with the public. So that networking skill is really critical. And those soft skills are tough because it's not just about getting the job. As Ann said, once you're here, that's what we need you to do. As I think everyone would say in local government, the best idea doesn't always win. And sometimes there's no good solution either. So it's not just about, well, I've done the research and I'm going to a meeting and I've got the best idea. You may have to sit through a meeting with residents who just want something you can't do and how to work with them on, sorry, we can't build a 45-foot tower next to your building or next to your house. Those skills are really, really critical. I guess the only other thing I'd add that sort of came up with the questions, we talked about networking, other than going to MMA, reaching out directly. Any other thoughts on just how do you get to network? There's the ability to do it. Where do we find you guys? Where do we find us?
What's the state associations? I mean, I saw you list all of those. The state associations are the best place to find us generally. Um, and I'll go back to my parking days. I became a parking manager, didn't have the first clue about parking. This was a complete learn on the fly and very interesting business, but I learned most of it through my colleagues in the New England Parking Association. Entered into that immediately, and that opened things up for me to learn about the business because everybody wants to share what they know. None of us as human beings want to leave this world having learned everything that we have learned and then it just disappears. We want to share it and be willing to go out there and pick our brains.
Thank you, John. That was very well said. Listen, I know the time is upon us. It is 1 o'clock. I just want to say thank you to our panelists, Lisa and Bernie, John, Scott, and Ann. Appreciate all of your knowledge and your willingness to participate. Special thanks goes out to Tony and the New England chapter of ASPA. It was very nice for them to sponsor this and host this event. And I want to thank all the participants who attended this event. We had quite a large number of people that attended, and really, I hope you got something out of this, and as you know, even I got something out of this program as well. Tony, I guess we're good.
I guess we're good. Thank you, Leon. Thank you to the panelists. And for those of you still joining us, we are going to send out some information. The chapter is going to offer resume assistance and some interview assistance and some work on those soft skills as something that we can provide to MPA and MPP students and really anyone that joined us. So thank you, everyone. We look forward to hearing with you. And thank you, panelists. I owe you all a drink.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Take care.
Good luck, everyone.
Nice seeing you, everyone.
Care.